Hello, my name is Thomas Webb, and I am about to introduce to y'all something called Remote Access Protocol. Now, some of you might be asking, well, what is remote access? Well, it's simple. Remote access is when a client can access their data via network access. This method can allow users to access multiple things such as files, applications, and it's even used for printers, and I find that pretty cool. Now you may be asking yourself, Thomas, how does this work? Well, it's simple, really. Remote access mainly uses a software that usually goes through whatever ISP network or mainly a VPN. And that's via a client software, which goes into a network access server, or NAS for short, and it lets the user access their data from whatever network they are on as long as they are connected to it. Now, how does it happen? Which is a really common question among people who want to try this. And I have a simple solution. Or not a simple solution, a simple answer. It's most commonly done via a software that the client, or in other words, a user of a device, uses. There are multiple types of softwares that are used, but they all have to have one thing in common. All of them have to be connected to a remote access server, which allows the user to access what they are using via a server. Now you may be asking yourself, Thomas, what is a remote access server? Well, it's really simple. A remote access server is something that is required to even use remote access. It's one of the many things that are heavily needed in order for it to retain internet connection and for it to be connected at all costs. Because a server is the pinpoint of which all of our stuff is done. There are multiple methods of using remote access protocol. There are a lot, but for the sake of convenience, I'll give you the most three ones that are most commonly known or commonly used. Simple, remote file access, terminal emulation, and VPN. These might seem as complex terms, but once I explain them to you, you will not you will have a better understanding of these methods. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is a VPN? Well, VPNs are used a lot. They are known as a virtual private network, as the following terms, since VPN, it's one of the key factors for remote access. It can create a virtual connection between both the client and the network is trying to connect via internet or via the device they are trying to use. And this can be used to protect data, get connected to another thing or another device, or trying another internet in another country. There are multiple common VPNs you can find on the App Store that are free, but I wouldn't recommend using them. Remote file access. Put in simple terms, it's in the name. File access is a way of remote file access called file transferring. It allows you to transfer your files to one computer to another. This can allow the client to transfer files from the host computer that it's connected to. It is also very encrypted that the data does not get lost while it's being transferred. Like it's encrypted by a FTPS, which adds a layer of protection so that the files remain secured while it's being transferred from another host computer and guides the transferred files to a certain port so that the file's data isn't corrupted via the file transfer. Terminal emulation. It may sound complicated, but it's actually not. It's real simple to understand. It is simply connecting to another computer using an emulator which allows the client or user, if you want to put it that way, to connect to another computer via a network connection. A few examples of terminal emulation are Remote Desktop for Windows and Telnet. Policies for remote access protocols. Workplaces use remote access protocols a lot throughout the workspace. So, in order to prevent any accidents from happening, like data getting stolen, corrupted, or lent in by an unknown individual or a worker, they put some policies in place to prevent that. Some of these are, like, for example, a password must be changed periodically. And I can say every few months, a worker might have to change their password. And they're not allowed to share with anyone, not even their family, because that'd be extremely forbidden and a huge risk to the company and the data. And for remote access, the devices have to be up to date with patches and anti-malware, because sometimes that could happen to someone who's using remote access, and that could hurt the computer a lot. My name is Thomas Webb, and I thank you a lot for listening to my talk about remote access protocols.